is Cam Mellor of the College Football Network and Pro Football Network, here to discuss, among other things, BYU's NFL draft prospects and Senior Bowl coverage. Cam, great to have you back on the program on a Friday.
It's a pleasure to be here as always, but also to be mentioned in the same monologue as Montel Jordan. You know, I felt like I made it last time, but now we're really taking it up a notch.
I called him a homie of the program last week. Yeah.
Yes, he is. It's a Friday tradition that we have on BYU Sports Nation. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Cam, tomorrow the Senior Bowl goes down with BYU's Jaren Hall at quarterback, wide receiver Puka Nacua. We think maybe he's injured and won't play, and then Blake Freeland on the offensive line. From just an overall standpoint, those three guys, how are they performing in your opinion?
It's an interesting take. The trio of them each had their moments. I would say that Puka stole the show on Tuesday, the first day of practice, but then we haven't seen him since. And no word yet on whether that was his decision or it was an injury that kept him out of practices on day 2 and 3. Jaren had some amazing balls overall during one-on-one drills. Team drill seemed a little bit slow as the install was still coming in and receivers were running some wrong routes here and there. And Blake held his own at left tackle reps. He was also playing some right tackle, which is new, obviously, but also had some discrepancies that I think he's got some room to grow in an NFL offense. So overall, the trio had their moments and really proved that they belong in this NFL draft conversation.
Give us a sense of what the practices and the drills mean in the week leading up to it versus the game as NFL scouts and GMs assess these high-profile potential draft picks.
Yeah, it's I say what they do on the field is about 33% of what this whole week is like, or for the athletes, the seniors, the Shrine Bowl, all their bowl games. Because let's face it, there's not a lot of flights into Mobile, Alabama. It's not a huge airport if you've ever been to it. It's a couple of the tarmacs here and there. But overall, with the amount of people that are inside and going to Mobile, they're on 24/7 that entire week that they're down in Mobile. No matter, they're getting a cup of coffee. NFL scouts are watching them. Decision makers are in the same breakfast rooms as them. And so what they do on the field is very, very important, but it's about 33%. It's about cementing what we believe that they were on tape. But the rest is, a lot of it is the importance is the lead up to the game. And you'll actually see the attendance drop significantly from the week of practices. I believe on Thursday, everybody leaves. It's a mass exodus from Mobile.
Interesting. So when the actual game takes place, how much can a guy really help himself in that game scenario?
I think it probably varies by position. You want to make sure that you can see offensive linemen put continuous reps back and forth. You're going to have similar defensive linemen also that you're going up against as well in that situation. So I think quarterbacks, you want to see if they can install the offense. You want to see if they can run a 2-minute drill, because I believe each team is going to get a 2-minute drill in the game. So, you know, it's not a lot on a bunch of the skill players, but I do think that maybe the quarterback and then the certain positions have a lot more that they can prove. But I think it varies, and it's not necessarily as important as those practices.
You mentioned recently that you felt like Puka Nacua could be drafted ahead of Jaren Hall. Based on what we've seen this week, how are you feeling about the three guys and that opinion of Puka and Jaren?
Yeah, I do think that Jaren probably cemented who we all thought that he could have been or is as a quarterback. Obviously not been in the room with his interviews with the decision makers, and so don't know, how well he's been answering maybe some of those questions that he's gotten, but I still think he's right in that mix as the 5th or 6th quarterback selected in the draft. That'll put him right at the tail end of round 3, maybe the beginning of round 4. Him and Jake Haener, actually, who are battling on the same team, are right in that same exact mix for that position of quarterback 5, 6, or 7. So for him, I still think Jaren is the higher drafted of him and Puka, but Puka definitely opened eyes and it catapulted his draft stock with that day 1.
You said Puka stole the show in that one practice. Some boards, in fact, I've seen quite a few boards, don't have Puka getting drafted. You feel like he's done enough with this one practice and his body of work at BYU amidst injuries that he is a sure thing draft pick at this point?
I would say after Tuesday's practice, he's a sure thing of a draft pick. I think a lot of people were worried and concerned, obviously, about the injuries. But I do think, again, I mentioned 33% of it is what you do on the field. That 66%, 67%, if our math is correct, is him answering the questions in those decision-making rooms, those interviews with the NFL draft, the scouting departments, the gurus. It's a lot better to hear it from Puka than it would be to hear it from a representation, hear it from a media outlet. So all I would take is one of those decision makers to make sure that they like his answers and trust where he is in rehab, make sure he's just healthy. Basically, I think he showed enough on Tuesday to fully cement himself as a mid-day 3 pick.
At this point, what's the highest round for each of the three you feel like they could go?
That's an interesting question. I think Blake, highest he could go is probably round 2. At this point, I think there's some room for him to grow. Long arms, but he did get attacked with some hand fighting and lost some of those battles. Great balance as well. But round 2 is pretty high for him. I think he's right in that day 2 range, maybe round 3 for him. Jaren, round 2 is the highest, depending on how far we get down the quarterback well, so to speak, how many go in that round 1 range. And then Puka also, I mean, it would not surprise me if Puka was drafted in round 3. Just that athleticism and his size and his versatility to be able to play outside, inside, and everything that he brings to the table. If he's healthy, someone would fall in love with him, I guarantee. But rounds 4, 5, or 6 for Puka Nacua.
Cam Mellor is with us on BYU Sports Nation discussing BYU's NFL draft prospects. Cam, I know that the Indianapolis Colts really like Jaren Hall, but the Colts are probably going to take one of those top 2 quarterbacks with their early draft pick. So where does Jaren fit? What's a good fit in the NFL for Jaren Hall?
I think Jaren, honestly, the Colts, I don't know, he'd be pressed into duty pretty early in that situation. I think for him to have a veteran who's not quite aged out completely, have someone that can help him adjust to the speed or really give him some of the practice reps that he can help push the veteran to continue to perform at his best. I think a simplified offensive system that is sort of a vertical passing offense that allows him to use the arm strength and his accuracy, because we all know from watching him play over the past 2 years, the accuracy is not going to be an issue. Arm strength is not an issue. His athleticism is not going to be an issue, but using the vertical passing game to his advantage as opposed to relying too much on his athleticism will elongate his NFL career, but also be able to allow him to really shine where I think he shines the most. So getting one of those situations where it's pushing a veteran, ultimately being a dependable backup for years 1 or 2 before he has to really step into the limelight.
So my Seahawks would be the perfect fit, which is what I'm hoping for, which would be great. You did produce a list of the top Big 12 quarterbacks going into next season. Kedon Slovis at number 8. What do you see in Kedon that you like to put him at that spot?
You know, if this was 2-3 years ago, I would have put Kedon Slovis right up there with the number 1, 2, 3, like in that top range for the Big 12. However, we may have taken a step back, and we are not quite that 2019 performance that knocked JT Daniels out and ultimately became, a talking point as a potential number 1 overall pick. Now, the Pitt offense didn't do a whole lot for him last year. It was not the Kenny Pickett offense from 2 years ago. It was a very pro style, almost like a Cal Bears to pull it out West Coast type of offense. And that was not his strength. His strength is, again, a vertical offense, throwing, 4 wide receivers out there and allowing him to use his arm strength. He has great accuracy. I do worry a little bit about some decision makings at time, and then also some of his ball placement can be a little bit erratic. We've seen recently, but I think getting him into a rhythm, 8 is probably his floor for where he's going to rank in the conference, and he can certainly get much higher.
Interesting. I do want to ask one follow-up question about Kedon. How much can BYU fans really expect from him, given that this is his final year and he has been at 2 programs previously? This is a well-traveled guy, so what are fair expectations for him?
It's a veteran leadership that gets brought into the table here. It's quickly becoming a place you can come and put your name on the map as a quarterback and not quite repair. This is the first time we're maybe going to try to repair a quarterback's image in the NFL draft decision makers. But I think that it speaks volume to the program, but it also speaks volume. I think Slovis is still that kid, or he can be that quarterback that is a first round type of NFL draft pick if he can put it all together. And so expect from him a veteran leader who's going to take over the offense and be a guy who is absolutely dependable, accountable, but also can maybe elevate this team. He's experienced in Power 5 play as well. So I think you have that most of the players on offense and defense on the BYU roster right now do not have that Power 5 experience. So, bringing a guy like Kedon in to lead the offense, lead the team is really a testament to him, and it's going to really challenge him as well. So I think, honestly, we can expect him to elevate the team and vault his draft stock.
Cam, I know every BYU fan hopes that at this point next year, we're discussing Kedon Slovis as a potential high-round draft pick. We shall see. We appreciate the time and your busy schedule, man, and the insights into the BYU guys at the Senior Bowl. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks as always for having me.
Cam Mellor, always a pleasure to have him on the show.
He knows what's going on.
His insight, his information, his expertise.
Yeah.